Hi, everybody. This is Donna Reed, and I live in Tucson, Arizona. I am an Up With People alumni from 1976A, and I am with Mona Bowe today. And Mona's agreed to be a guinea pig for my first interview related to who is in Up With People, where are we now, when did we travel, and how did this organization affect our life? So thank you, Mona.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I appreciate it. And so we were just chatting before I started recording that you and I met serving on the Board of Governors sometime. We don't remember when.
No.
15, 20 years ago. I don't Probably. So Mona, tell us a little bit about you. Where were you when you saw a show and when you joined the cast, when you traveled, things like that?
Sure. So I was living in Mexico City. That's where I'm from. And I actually never saw a show. I had a really good friend of my family, Delia Martinez, that traveled in E83. And she asked me to transfer, I'm going to date myself here, to transfer a videotape that she had on beta to VHS. And when I did that, it was her recap of her entire year. And I absolutely fell in love with the organization. So the more we talked to Delia, my sister and I, who my sister also traveled, the more we fell in love with people. So she called Tucson and said, hey, nobody's coming to Mexico in the near future. And I think this girl should interview. And so they sent her a packet and she did the interview. And a year later, I was on the road with E87. So,
oh my gosh, did Chano travel the same year? Did you guys travel the same year?
So actually we ended up traveling in the same cast because back then the E-casts were only one cast. Yeah. They didn't have enough students and they called and said, hey, would you do this together? And of course my mom thought it was the greatest thing because we were going together. So we ended up traveling in the same cast, although because of we both did PR a number of times and I had issues with my knee, so I had to have surgery in Tucson. We ended up only being together in the cast at the same time for about a month of the entire year. So we had very different experiences, but a lot of friends in common, which is great.
Okay, so you traveled in the 80s. I meet people through the years. I don't remember when they traveled. Did you speak fluent English when you traveled?
I did. I actually was teaching in a bilingual school. I was a first grade teacher. What was interesting though is even though I grew up in Mexico, the higher level of my English experience was all in a British school. So I was taught by British professors. So when I got to Tucson, between the accents and the slang, I was lost for a little while. And it took me a while to be okay with me not being as fluent in a language that I was teaching. And I thought I was much better at. So yes, I was bilingual by the time I traveled.
Oh, that's good. So you staged in Tucson, right? Because in the 80s we were still learning the show in Tucson.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I staged in Tucson. I traveled with E87, but then I was also on staff for E88, C87, 88, 89, and 90, and then Cast B 92 and 93. Wow. So I did most of my stagings in Tucson, but my very last one with B93 was actually in Denver. That was the year that they transitioned and the first staging in Denver. So I got
So I was thinking about costumes because when I traveled, I worked on costumes, which mostly meant putting them away and washing them a lot. Tell me what you saw a number of costumes through the years. What did you start with in the 80s? What your costumes look like?
So I was the first cast at the time for the music, and that's when we moved away from the uniform look. So that was the first show that the goal was to look like street clothes. So my costume was a red cotton shirt, button-down shirt. And then after a big fight with Greg Witt in the costumes department, a mini skirt, because I didn't want a mini skirt. I thought it was too short. And he kept saying, you're going to look great. And he was right. I ended up wearing this, the same mini skirt for the entire life of the show, which was 2.5 years. And tennis shoes, we wore Reeboks. Not everybody on the cast, but that was my show costume.
I had no idea that they transitioned that early because I did costumes in 78, 79, and 80, and they were still
and I mean there was a show costume and you were not supposed to wear it outside of the show, but we could have. I mean, if you didn't return them at the end of the year, you could have worn the shirts, the skirts, all of that. Of course, by the end of the year they were trashed, but they were regular normal clothes.
So what is a song that you traveled a lot of years, so I'm not going to ask you to pick one from each year. But is there a song that you remember clearly that you feel like you sing over and over in your head or you reflect on through the years?
Yeah, actually, there are two. There's one that I traveled with. It was a closing song, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the show, but it is a song that is called "What's Happening to You," and the whole song talks about what happens to you happens to me, which I think is my experience in Up with People. Right? Every place became a person. Every situation became a person. It wasn't just reading something on the news. It was someone that I knew or someone that knew someone that I knew. So that song has always really been really special to me. But also the other one that I love, and I didn't travel with this song, but my husband, who's also an alum and also traveled in several.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. One of Mike's favorite songs is "Till Everybody's Home." And it's always been a song that gets me. It's a song that brings tears to my eyes. But with the current situation in Ukraine, it has a completely different meaning now. All these people that are displaced, that happens all the time around the world. But having been in Ukraine with people for whatever reason, this particular war is hitting really, really close to me.
So
and
that
song really,
yeah.
Nobody's going to be, there's not going to be peace. Nobody's going to be truly fulfilled and happy till everybody's home. And that means all kinds of things. In this case, it's very literal, until the Ukrainian people can be home.
I think that was one of the ones that Ralph and Herbie talked about being super important to them a number of years ago, till the last soul is fed and there's a roof above their head.
Yeah.
You're right.
Great song. Great
they
song.
all make me cry.
You have to go back and look for it, because it's not one that, unless you travel in that era, maybe you don't know as much. And so there's probably people younger than me going, what? So go look for it, because it's an amazing song.
Yeah. So you already told us you met your spouse on the road, which I have learned through the years that her husband Mike graduated from a rival high school of mine in Ohio, which we think is funny. And now you guys, you've lived in Indiana for a lot of years, right?
Yeah. We met with C89 when I was a stage manager, and Mike was coming back to Up with People after taking a break as a lighting tech. We got married in 91, and we went back on the road as a married couple in 92 and 93, and then settled here in South Bend, Indiana, middle of the road, right? He lived in a little town of 7,000 people. I grew up in a city of 21 million at the time. So I needed somewhere in between. So South Bend, Indiana, 250,000, University of Notre Dame, and a number of other universities here around us. I thought we would be here for 2 years, and we're going on 32. So it is just a great location, great place.
Last summer I visited a lot of alumni as I did that road trip. And I remember Stuart Shepard said to me that he thought he would only be in North Platte, Nebraska for a couple of years, and they've been there like 27 years.
The funny thing is my cast was in South Bend, Indiana, but I was doing PR. So I missed the step. And they were here for almost 2 weeks because they were working for the International Special Olympics that happened to be at the University of Notre Dame. So two funny stories from that. The first time that I brought my sister to see my office, she said, "Oh, I've been here. We used to work as babysitters for volunteers for the Special Olympics, and this is where we had all the kids." So she had been to my office before I had. And the first day when I took this job at St. Mary's College, the secretary that was walking me to HR said, "Oh, my best friend hosted students from Up with People in '87." And I said, "Well, whoever they went, where I know them because that was my cast. Her best friend hosted my sister." So we were able to reconnect my sister with her host family in South Bend. It's a small world. It's a very, very small world.
It is a very small world. So, we know you met your spouse there on the road, and now you've been in Indiana. You mentioned Notre Dame, but you've worked for a different university. Let me ask you, how do you feel like Up with People and your time in Up with People affected your career choice, altered your path a little bit? Clearly you're in Indiana instead of Mexico City.
Right.
But what would you say maybe you brought from Up with People into your current life that has aided you well, or something like that?
Yeah, I think there are two ways that it did it, directly and indirectly. Directly, the reason that I got into admission was because a friend of ours, we have a friend in common, Christina Geisler, was visiting here from Germany, and she saw a posting for a job looking for an admission person for college, and she thought, oh, this is a great job for you. And she was right. I interviewed for the job, I got the job, and I did admission and financial aid for St. Mary's College for 26 years. So very directly, my experience up with people, interviewing students, and I was on the admission team right out of Tucson for my student year. The training that I got from Francine Knowles, from Brenda Palms, I mean, definitely directly affected what I do for a living. But I also think that it gave me the courage to try something new. You know, the first grade teacher that left Mexico, who tried to be a lighting tech first, and then a stage manager, and then a production manager, and then a cast manager. You have the Tim Lanes and the Michael Knowleses of the world that believe in you, that give you a shot, and then nothing is impossible. So a year ago, when I got a call from my current president here at the college and said, hey, I need you to start a brand new office, work in retention, that's what we need. Would you let go of that mission world that you know so well? I didn't hesitate, because Up With People trained me to be ready for the next thing. I couldn't have told you a year ago that retention was going to be my new world, but it is, and I love it, and it's been a great change for me. But I don't think without the experience of, yeah, let's try it, see what happens, that I learned from Up With People, I don't know that I would have been that willing to make a big leap like this. So yeah, every day, the skills that I learn from Up With People come back every day.
I think that, you know, we often as kids, there's the square peg in a round hole or whatever, and we just kind of learned that you're malleable and you can be in any situation and you can make it work, which
aside from my day job at the university, I also led the COVID response team for the last 2 years. And I took one biology class and one chemistry class. Had I known, I would have paid more attention. I'm doing this for an institution of 1,500 students and 500 employees. But I think about why it didn't bother me when I was asked to do this is because I've done stuff like this before, right? It's all logistics, it's all preparing yourself, it's all understanding what's coming, making the best decisions that you can with the information that you have today. And that's exactly how we've gotten the college to be in person for 2 years. But again, that all comes from training that I received when I was doing both my student year and staff year set Up With People.
So in order to wrap this up in sort of a timely manner, if you were to think about Up With People related to the last couple of years, I mean, you've just touched on Ukraine, you've touched on COVID. Is there anything that you would say from Up With People that has helped you? You know, in my little intro video, I talk about weathering the storm. This has been quite a storm for our world. And we're, as you mentioned, the Ukraine, we're in the easy place of the storm, right?
No question, no question.
But tell me how you think Up With People maybe helped you get through this last couple of years.
Between my husband and I, we have 11 casts that we travel with, either separate or together, 3 of them together. And being able to connect with those casts through the 2 years of the pandemic, every single one of those casts had Zoom meetings or Google Meets or some kind of virtual meeting at some point in time. Some of them are really keeping it up. There's one of our casts that does this every month, a Saturday of every month. There's some that did it once or twice and didn't do it again. But it opened our eyes collectively to what was happening in other parts of the world. I knew what was coming because my friend Cici Caroli, who's a pharmacist in Italy, was telling us what was happening there. I knew how Africa as a continent and countries within Africa were dealing with the pandemic because my friend John Kagaruki was telling us what they were doing in Tanzania. I mean, it really brought the fact that we are a connected world and that we can continue to learn from each other even 35 years, and my 35th reunion is this summer. Even 35 years later, we are still learning from each other. The first person I knew that had COVID was my friend Hans, who's German but lives in Switzerland, and had it before we even knew what it was. So it brought the world together in a way that I feel sorry for the people that don't have those kinds of connections, truly, because we all do as alumni, we all do.
Yeah. So I have no idea who's going to watch this, right? We don't know whether just our cast members, maybe just our friend Sheila. I don't know.
My husband and my sister for sure.
Yeah, there'll be a couple. But if you could say anything, clearly we know Up With People as we experienced will never quite be the same, right?
Right.
And yet we have leadership that's working on a new arena related
Yes.
to the arts and how we can move forward and let other people experience what we experienced.
Yeah.
What would you say to a 20-year-old at the college where you work who's interested in maybe taking a year and doing something different? What would be your words to them if Up With People was an option?
To them, I would say, take the leap, take the year, whether it's Up With People, whether it's any of the other programs that exist, whether it's just traveling around the world and working in farms, whatever it is, take the leap. It will change your life. After so many casts that we travel together, Mike and I often talk about how we never met a student that left Up With People a worse person.
Good point.
But every single one of them became a better person and grew in different ways. It changed everybody's life in little ways or huge ways, in just experience or finding your mate, finding your soulmate and moving across the world to live with them. And I would say to people my age that are not the 20-year-olds, take chances on people. If I hadn't had the people in Up With People that said, hey, we're going to give it a shot at being a lighting tech, she knows nothing about this, but we can train her, that my path would have gone a completely different way. So take chances on the young people that are trying to have that experience, support them, whether it's financial or emotional, and give them the wings to go. They'll come back. Give them the wings to go.
That's awesome. All right, we're going to end this. We're going to post it. We're going to hope people listen, and to the world that does listen, please let us know if you can hear us equally, if it's too long, if it's too much, if it's not professional enough, or what you like or what you don't like. Please let us know, because I hope to hear from other alumni about who they think that I should talk to. And please tell your husband I said hi, and love and hugs from Tucson.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you for doing this. I'm looking forward to the rest of them. I want to get to meet some alumni that maybe I don't know anything about. So thank you for doing this. Take care.
Awesome. All right. Bye.
Bye.